Let's Go Sports says, I can tell you one thing. Cousins is not going to Pittsburgh. He says, I'm not saying it would be a dumb decision, but for the Steelers, they do not need to make that trade. Instead, they should trade up. And that is exactly where we're going to start tonight. Let's Go Sports. That's exactly where we're going to start tonight, Man Hour Nation. That is the potential of Kirk Cousins going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The potential of Kirk Cousins being a draft day trade. The potential of Mason Rudolph not being the starter in Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I should say. So, as you guys know, the NFL meetings are happening right now, and there's microphones being shoved in everybody's faces, right? Everybody's getting microphones shoved in their faces, and Mike Tomlin was sweating profusely. The old man sitting here like, right? But Mike Tomlin said yesterday that he is comfortable if Mason Rudolph is a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. However, Kirk Cousins has been linked to a draft day trade to the Pittsburgh Steelers if the Aaron Rodgers wheel does not work out. So, guys, Let's Go Sports, Alpha Rob, Old Man River, James, the rest of the people that are in here tonight, should the Pittsburgh Steelers have more faith in Mason Rudolph, half a head himself, or one leg, one Achilles, Mr. Kirk Cousins? Who should they have more faith in if Aaron Rodgers does not eventually come to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, let's get the facts out there. The facts are that the Falcons have been on the record saying that they will not cut or release Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is their backup quarterback. Kirk Cousins is not going anywhere from Atlanta. As you guys know, Kirk Cousins is currently listed as the backup quarterback to the Atlanta Falcons behind Michael Penix Jr. He was benched last 3 games of the season after a abysmal 5-game stretch where he had like 1 touchdown to 9 interceptions. It was just terrible, right? But the simple fact of the matter is that Kirk Cousins is being paid a lot of money by the Atlanta Falcons to sit the bench. The Atlanta Falcons lost a 4th-round pick for collusion to bring Kirk Cousins into Atlanta to pay him $100 million, it was like $100 million guaranteed. I think it was like $125 million after it's all said and done, just to be him on the bench to be a backup. It doesn't really make sense to sit him back there. But Kirk Cousins does have a no-trade clause in his contract. Kirk Cousins has had the most friendly and the best contracts ever in the NFL. But let's just be honest. Why would Kirk Cousins want to sit behind Michael Penix Jr. when he has a chance to be a starter in Pittsburgh? Guys, Kirk Cousins finished the 2024 NFL season on a very, very bad note. He had 112 yards versus those Las Vegas Raiders, where he threw his first touchdown in 4 weeks. In the previous 5 weeks of the season, he had 9 interceptions to 1 touchdown. That is rough. Now, after the Super Bowl, it was later said that he had an injury in those 5 games, and therefore he was being benched to heal the injury, whatever, right? I never heard what the injury was. Did you guys ever hear what the injury was? I never heard what the injury was. Maybe the injury was just old age. That could have been it, right? Now, on the flip side of that, Mason Rudolph did play in 8 games last season. 8. Put him up. Not Miss Davis 10, but 8. I had 9, but 8, right? In those 8 games, Mason Rudolph racked up 1,530 yards total passing with 9 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. So really, right off the bat, Mason Rudolph is pretty damn good compared to Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had 9 interceptions in 5 games in a row. And Mason Rudolph had 9 interceptions in 8 games. Hey, we're improving. We're looking a little better, right? He did get credit for 2 wins in Tennessee versus Miami and an overtime win over the New England Patriots. His best game yard-wise was a loss to the Detroit Lions where he did throw for 266 yards. They did end up losing that game 52-12. A lot of mop-up duty time, like a lot of sloppy seconds, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, guys, the question is simple. The question is, should the Steelers have more faith in Mason Rudolph or Kirk Cousins? And I don't know how much more blatantly we can say this. Kirk Cousins is proven in the NFL. Kirk Cousins has been there. He has done that. What has Mason Rudolph done? His rookie season, he got his head smashed in by freaking Myles Garrett. And then the following season, he had to get his face mask ripped off because he got knocked the F out, right? He has a half a brain. It may have finally developed back in there after 3 seasons later. But really, guys, Mason Rudolph is a nice, pliable backup. But that's about it. Kirk Cousins can go in there and win you games. If it comes down to trading to Kirk Cousins or relying on Mason Rudolph, I am trading for Kirk Cousins 10 out of 10 times. I am relying on the 42-year-old Achilles injury back to 80% Kirk Cousins. Let's just be honest. I do not like Mason Rudolph. I never liked Mason Rudolph. I don't have any faith in Mason Rudolph. And it's clear that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have any faith in him either. If they had faith in him, they would not be putting Aaron Rodgers up on this pedestal, right? Cam Hayward wouldn't be putting Aaron Rodgers up on this pedestal. He wouldn't be playing catch with DK Metcalf, putting him up on this pedestal. There's a reason why they want Aaron Rodgers so bad, because they know Mason Rudolph is not it. Now, if you could potentially give Skylar Thompson a shot, my man from the Kansas State University, give him a shot, we might have a different story. Might be a different story for a different day, but Mason Rudolph or Kirk Cousins, give me Kirk Cousins. So what do you guys think? Mason Rudolph or Kirk Cousins at the end of the day? And James Frank says Kirk Cousins will end up in Cleveland before he ends up in Pittsburgh. I hope he goes to Pittsburgh because I don't want him. Guys, let's just be perfectly honest. James Frank is a Cleveland Browns fan. James Frank wants anybody that has a pulse right now besides Kenny Pickett in Cleveland. James would probably take Kenny Pickett off of the Pittsburgh Steelers' hands for another 4th round pick or 5th round pick. Hey, send us all your sloppy seconds over here in Cleveland. We like those, baby. But I am starting to hear that story, those James. I am starting to hear that, hey, Kirk Cousins could be ending up in Cleveland, especially after who is the owner of the Cleveland Browns? Can't think of his name right here off the top of my head, but he has come out and said that, hey, we swung and missed on Deshaun Watson. It was a swing and a miss, and we need to own it, and we're owning it now, right? So it is what it is. Old Man River says experience speaks for itself. Kirk Cousins does have a lot of experience. Kirk Cousins has been around the block per se, right? He spent 4 or 5 years in Washington. At the time it was the Redskins. Then he went to Minnesota, and now he's in Atlanta. Like, he has definitely served his time out there, right? I gotta know how many years, but let's say 15, 16 years in the NFL. He's going to be 42 years old this season. He has been there. He's done that. And let's just be honest. The Steelers are a quarterback away. My man Drew's in the chat. What's up, Drew? What's up, man? Hope you have a good day. Alpha Rob said the Steelers are a veteran team. I don't think they go with a rookie. Cousins is the best bet. So a lot of people are speculating that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be drafting a quarterback in the 1st round. Whether it's Jackson Dart, whether it's making a reach for a Will Howard or a Milroe, or potentially even moving as far as up as like a top 10 pick and getting a Jackson Dart, right? I mean, like, all signs are pointing that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to try to draft a quarterback if this Aaron Rodgers thing falls through. But you are right, Alpha Rob. The Pittsburgh Steelers like to build from within. They like to draft a quarterback. They like to allow him to develop and see what they can do, right? However, didn't Mike Tomlin draft a rookie Ben Roethlisberger? They went to the Super Bowl the following season. Wasn't that right? So, I mean, they have played rookie quarterbacks before, but we'll see. Drew says Kurt would be a better pick than Mason Rudolph. And Drew, you're right. I'm with you on this, Drew. I agree. I think Kirk Cousins is better off than Mason Rudolph. And now, I like Mason Rudolph when he was in the Big 12. Well, he was an Oklahoma State Cowboy, right? He wasn't too bad in college. But for some reason, ever since Myles Garrett whooped his ass, like, I don't like him. I don't know if it's his face. I don't know if it's like him, like, saying the N-word to Myles Garrett. Like, I don't know. I don't like his face. Now, Obviously, if we would meet in public, I'm not going to say, I don't like your face, but I'll be cordial to him and shake his hand and say, hey, man, what's up? But sitting here behind the camera, watching this game, I just don't like his face. Like, I don't get it, but I just don't like his face. Let's Go Sports says, I'm comfortable with Rudolph as the quarterback as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I don't want it to happen because if there's consistent and they can make a deep ball throw or basic pass to George Pickens or DK, I'm good with him for one season. And Let's Go Sports, this is kind of the dilemma that you guys are in, right? If you get Aaron Rodgers, 1 year, potentially 2-year quarterback. You get Kirk Cousins, 1 year, potentially 2 years quarterback. Mason Rudolph could be there still for another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? And we know that Mike Tomlin is going to get his 8, 9, 10 wins. That's just his MO. Doesn't have a losing season. And when Pittsburgh Steelers say, oh, we're getting 10 wins with Mason Rudolph, why do we need to draft a quarterback? Why do we need to trade for a quarterback? Why do we need to do this? I could see that being the beginning of the end of the Pittsburgh Steelers, having Mason Rudolph just have a little bit of success, saying, we'll keep him for another year. Next season he gets 10 wins again. The following season he gets 11 wins. He's back down to like 9. And then we're in this whole controversy yet again, and 3, 4, 5 years down the road. But this time the defense is a hell of a lot older. The offense is a hell of a lot older. And now you need more pieces than just a quarterback. So I'm not saying Mason Rudolph is going to be the man, the myth, the legend. Do not get that twisted. I am saying that he will be a 9, 10 win quarterback, just like Kirk Cousins, just like Aaron Rodgers. But I would still take Kirk Cousins. Alpha Rob says Cousins will be better this year physically. Alpha Rob, I wonder if Kirk Cousins was so. When you have an injury that just takes time to heal, right? I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, all the rest of the wannabe doctors out there, it takes time for stuff to heal. It takes 7, 8 months for an ACL to fully heal. It takes a year for the Achilles to fully heal. It takes 9 weeks for a shoulder to like fully heal. At the end of the day, it just takes time for it to fully heal. And I get you on that aspect. However, when you are in a new city, when you have this massive deal, when they colluded to come to get you, and then all the pressure is on your shoulders, and you know in your heart to heart that you are not 100%, and you know in your heart to hearts that you are not performing to the level that like you can, that starts to weigh on you. I was talking about Kirk Cousins. Because when Kirk Cousins went to ATL, went to the Atlanta Falcons, got that hashtag rise up, got the dirty bird going on, or the swag wave, or whatever the hell they do down there, right? The pressure was on for them to win right then and right now. Hell, let's flash back to the first 6 weeks of that NFL season. The Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins put up that 600-yard passing game or 500-yard passing game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football. Everybody and their dog saying, Kirk Cousins, comeback player of the year. Atlanta Falcons, Super Bowl. They're winning the South. They're going to run the NFC, whatever. The Detroit Lions better look out. Everybody was putting him up on this pedestal, and that added pressure to Kirk Cousins. Then he started to slide a little bit. Once you start to slide a little bit, it gets slippery. They put that Dawn dish soap down. Yeah, once that one foot starts to slide, you can kind of lean back and plant the other foot and try to save it. But damn it, once you start going down that slip and slide, it is all the way down to the bottom till you get there. And that's what Kirk Cousins did at the end of the season. And that same pressure is going to be on in Pittsburgh. That same pressure that he had in Atlanta is going to be in Pittsburgh as well. Because Steelers are legitimately a quarterback away being a Super Bowl caliber team. The Pittsburgh Steelers are legitimately a quarterback of winning the AFC North, winning a wild card game, snapping that, 7-8 game losing streak of the first round that Mike Tomlin has. It's tough. Let's Go Sports says, I want to win now and don't think Rudolph would take us far. But if we don't get A-Rod, I don't think we have many more options than to draft a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round. Let's Go Sports, you are right. The Pittsburgh Steelers are built to win right now. It is what it is.
Pigskin pun. Get you some.
They are built to win right now. They have a top-tier defense. They finished, I think, 12th last year, I do believe. Maybe 13th. My mind's serving me, right? The offense was obviously not very good, but they got a pretty good receiver core. They got a nice little running back in Jaylen Warren. They are a quarterback away. If they get a quarterback that doesn't suck, like I said last June, all you need is Russell Wilson not to suck. All you need is Justin Fields not to suck. They are a playoff-bound team. The issue with drafting a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round, they will more than likely be a project. They more than likely will not be ready for the NFL. They more than likely will be happy sitting on the bench for 3 years behind Mason Rudolph or Aaron Rodgers and hopefully one chance get a shot. That's just what it is. You are not going to win with Mason Rudolph. You can win with Aaron Rodgers. You can win with Kirk Cousins. So why not trade for Kirk Cousins, give them back their 3rd round pick, whatever they got for him, right? Maybe even put a second in there. Give them Mason Rudolph as their insurance plan. And then you can still take Will Howard in the 4th or 5th round. You can still take Milroe in the 4th or 5th round. Those quarterbacks are probably going to go late off the board. They should, but we'll talk about the draft later. But let's just be honest. Will Howard is your only option. My bad, guys. Allergy season is live, raw, and uncut here in Southern Indiana. James Frank says, let me be this very, very clear. James, let me clear my throat. Let me down my W energy. Guys, go to w.gg. Use promo code MANHOUR. Get yourself 30% off. He says, screw Mason Rudolph. James, just because Mason Rudolph single-handedly took on your whole defensive line, don't hate the man. Don't hate the player, hit the game. Don't hate the player, hit the game. Wrong, button. Old Man River says, what is his passing stats before the injury? Let's look at his passing stats. So let's use this term loosely. It was injury, right? It was an injury. We don't really know what the injury was. I did not hear what the injury was. Did you guys hear what the injury was? Because I never heard it. But if I remember correctly, the first 6 games of the NFL season, Kirk Cousins was lighting it up. First 6 games of the NFL season, Kirk Cousins was the man, the myth, the legend. So let's kick on Kirk Cousins. 14 games played in the 2024 NFL season. Drum roll, please. Game 1, September 8th, was a loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 18-10. He threw for 155 yards. Whatever, it was Arthur Smith's comeback versus the Falcons. There was a lot of emotion in that game. Whatever, yada, yada, yada. Week number 2, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles 22-21. He went 20 for 29, 241 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Week number 3, a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. He threw for 20 for 29, 230 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The next week, this is when they got hot, right? They beat the Saints. Like, if you guys remember at the time, the Saints had like 90 points in 3 games. It was something crazy, right? It was the most points they've scored since their Super Bowl year. Saints are going to the Super Bowl. Saints are great. This, and this, right? How quickly those wheels fell off that bus. But the Falcons beat the Saints at home, 26-24. Kirk Cousins went 21 for 35 for 238 yards for 1 interception. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that game. He went 42 for 48, 509 yards passing, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. That was that Thursday night game that I was speaking of. And then they played the Cardinals. He went 19 for 30, 225 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. And then a loss to the Seahawks. This was a just bad loss. It was just a terrible game. But he went 24 for 35, 232 yards, 1 touchdown to 2 interceptions. And then they bounced back. They beat the Buccaneers on the road, 23-29. 276 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. They beat the Dallas Cowboys 27-21. Kirk Cousins went 19 for 24, 222 yards passing, 3 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, and then the wheels fell off the wagon. Lost to the Saints, lost to the Broncos, Chargers, and Vikings, and then he ended his season beating the Las Vegas Raiders 14-9 when he went 11 for 17, 112 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So they were pretty good. They were pretty good. He had about 2,900 yards passing in those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So in 9 games, he was actually, it was just under 3,000 yards in those 9 games. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. And then Let's Go Sports says, look at Mason Rudolph's last 3 games of the 2023 regular season. He went 3-0 and absolutely went nuts with Pickens, Muth, and Deontay Johnson. Imagine him now. Don't judge him based off playing in Tennessee. All right, let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's look at the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. I believe 2023 would have been his sophomore year, right? Sophomore year? Let's go ahead and, guess we need to click on the schedule. Click on 2023. Actually, that would have been his 3rd year, right? Because this is his fifth year. So, last 3 games, they played the Bengals. They played the Seahawks. They played the Baltimore Ravens. They were 7-7 going into this particular game. Mason Rudolph versus the Cincinnati Bengals. On December 23rd, 2023, he threw for 290 yards in that particular game. Can I click on it? I can click on it, but it takes me to this. Go to regular season 2023. It's not going to let me do that. So he actually played 4 games in 2023. So let's go back. So he had just under 300 yards in playing the Bengals in his first time starting that particular season. Where are we at? And then the week 17, they were at Seattle. They beat the Seattle Seahawks 30-23. Mason Rudolph went for 274 yards passing in that particular game. And then to wrap up the regular season, January 6, 2023, they traveled to Baltimore Ravens and beat the Baltimore Ravens 17-10, and Mason Rudolph threw for 152 yards. Deontay Johnson had 89 yards. Pickens had 131 yards versus the Seahawks, and Pickens had 195 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's not get crazy. Let's not get too crazy, because obviously the Baltimore Ravens did not play that Week 18 game. Let's just call a spade a spade. They did not play that Week 18 game. So, and Mason Rudolph obviously did not perform very, very well. The Seahawks, they were out of the playoff competition in that Week 17 game as well. It looked like the 49ers already had that division locked up, and the Rams were coming in hot in second place. So they weren't playing for a whole lot. And then the Cincinnati Bengals in 2023, was that the year that Joe Burrow got hurt? I'm not mistaken. Jake Browning was like in there, right? Yeah, because Jake Browning actually beat Mason Rudolph in the head-to-head yardage competition of 335 yards to 290. So Let's Go Sports. I see what you're saying. You are looking at his stats and 290, 250, 156. Not too bad for a third-string quarterback that particular season. But look who they played. The Bengals weren't playing for nothing. Seahawks weren't playing for nothing, and the Bengals already had their number 1 seed locked up in the AFC. So it's kind of a minute point, right? It is what it is. Drew says Kirk Cousins was injured. He couldn't rotate his leg out to give him a hard leg to throw off of. Drew, I'm not saying he wasn't injured, but in a NFL regular season, by week 13, everybody's injured. Whether it's a nagging sprained ankle, whether it's a hammy, whether it's a rotator cuff, everybody's injured by the time it comes that time of the NFL season. What I'm asking is, what was the injury? Was it his Achilles? Was it not fully healed? Was it a knee? Was it a hamstring? Was it a shoulder? What was his injury? That is the main question. That is what I want to know, is what was his injury? And James, I think you nailed Mason Rudolph right there on the head. He says Mason Rudolph looks like a stuck-up douchebag. And yeah, he does, honestly. I just don't like his face. just don't like his face. And Let's Go Sports says, I would absolutely prefer Cousins over Rudolph, but I think he would cost too much and not be worth the cost. I am not sure what we would have to give up for him, but not be too much. I think realistically, probably a third or fourth round pick, equivalent to the Geno Smith trade, is what you're looking at for Kirk Cousins. A third round pick is probably what the Falcons would probably want for Kirk Cousins. Jagsonville says Cousin is only 36. No, he's not. Kirk Cousins is not 36. Is he only 36? I thought he was pushing 40. You better be April Fool's me, because I thought Kirk Cousins was a hell of a lot older than that. Okay, he is only 36. My bad. I stand corrected. I thought he was older than that. But still, it's going to be 37 by the time the NFL season starts. The average quarterback is only lasted to the age of 34. We'll see what happens. James says, I'm right there with you, Buck, as Mason Rudolph has a very punchable face. Yeah, he does. Like, he just looks like, I don't know, he always looks like lost. He's just like, I don't know. Cousins to Pittsburgh equals 12 wins, says Old Man River. Old Man River, I'm with you. Any competent quarterback to the Pittsburgh Steelers is 11, 12 wins. Whether it's Kirk Cousins, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, any top 16 quarterback and above gives the Pittsburgh Steelers 12 wins this season. Old Member says I'm thinking it was the drafting of the Penix Jr. Yes. Drafting Penix was definitely a head scratcher, right? You just brought Kirk Cousins in on a 4-year deal, right? 4-year, $100 and some odd million deal. And then you draft a quarterback in the first round. Like, what? Like, come on, man. Come on. Let's Go Sports says, as a Steelers fan, I love Rudolph and the Garrett beef. Garrett got to Rudolph, but then our old lineman destroyed him. He never said the N-word, but did entice the fight. It makes the rivalry better. Do you still think they had that beef? I would be curious, because I wonder if it was the Pouncey twins versus Myles Garrett that kind of actually enticed the beef, but Mason Rudolph was kind of being the peacekeeper, but then he said the wrong word. They said, "Get out of here, white boy, with your punchable face. Let me get out of there." Old member says, I met in Minnesota before to be traded on stats. We're not looking at Kirk Cousins' Minnesota stats. Because those stats are going to be inflated with the Kevin O'Connell system. Let's just call a spade a spade. Cousins just has an old soul. He does. Like, I mean, Kirk Cousins kind of has a punchable face too, but also a face that I want to like take and go have a beer with all at the same time. I feel like Kirk Cousins is a guy that I would take to the bar and talk shit for him, and hopefully he gets in a fight. Real McCoy says, Steelers fans are crazy if they think this team is better than average. Real McCoy, slow it down, baby. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a top-tier defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a top 6 wide receiver core now in the NFL. I was going to say 5, but I was like, maybe not. Let's slow that down. Let's say top 6. Jaylen Warren is a top 10 running back in the NFL. He is going to have a great year. I thought he should have been the number 1 running back last year in front of Najee Harris, but Najee Harris had the 10-year whatever, but we'll see how he does in LA, right? The Steelers are legitimately an above-average quarterback away. If they have competent quarterback play, they're a 10, 11, 12-win team, winning a wild card game. Just it is what it is. Drew says they showed Cousins' throw pattern on the big sports channel. It showed the same leg that he pulled his Achilles did not have the same range of motion compared to the beginning of last season. So it wasn't an additional injury, Drew. He just wasn't ready for the season. He just wasn't complete with like rehab, and they threw him into the fire. So I wouldn't call it an injury. I just said he was still injured from the Achilles. They made it seem like there was a new injury. James Frank says they don't have the beef anymore. Miles squashed it. AKA, Miles went on to bigger and better things.